I have come to remember 85% of every character's kit, of what they do, how many people they attack, and all that juicy stuff, since I have been playing Honkai Star Rail since the first day it got released. So I better be knowing all of that. Apart from that, you might have noticed that we can see a lot of things going on the screen right now. From Wu, one is Rappa, and she's the 6th character, like the other 5, doing a special thing right here. You might have noticed that they're all doing an attack, that is obvious. We can see we got 2 destruction characters, so Imbibitor Lune and Blade, 3 erudition characters, which are QQ, Rappa and Jade, and just 1 preservation character, which is Fire MC, which is quite odd actually. And, like I said, they're all doing an attack, but they're all doing specifically a basic attack. And you can see Imbibitor Lune twice on the screen. In one animation he is doing a basic attack when he has consumed 2 skill points, and in the other animation you can see him doing a basic attack where he has consumed 3 skill points. And in Rappa's case, she's just doing the first and second part of her basic attack. And all of these basic attacks are classified as an enhanced basic attack, apart from Jade. Jade is the only one whose basic attack here on the screen is the natural basic attack. And at this point you might have noticed what they're all doing the same, and that is they're all attacking 3 enemies with their basic attack, aka a blast attack, as how Honkai Star Rail classifies them. And like I said, we got 2 destruction characters, 3 erudition, and 1 preservation character. So if we go to the erudition characters, it's quite odd actually that they don't all do a blast attack with their basic attack, since they're erudition. They specialize in AoE attacks. So just having their basic attack do 3 attacks would have been quite nice. But they all compensated in one way or another. Like with Surfall's case, she's just 1 inch away from doing a blast attack with her basic attack. Since her Eidolon 1, so her E1, makes it so that whenever she does a basic attack, that attack also hits 1 random enemy adjacent to the attacked enemy. So she attacks basically 2 enemies. It is quite a shame why they just couldn't do it like a blast attack, but sure. Maybe because her talent, which says that whenever Surfall attacks an enemy, that she deals additional lightning damage to all shocked enemies on the field. So her basic attack hits 2 enemies if you got her E1, and her skill always hits 3 enemies, so it's a blast attack. If all enemies are shocked, then she will always do additional damage to every enemy on the field if they are shocked. Which is maybe why the reason they just didn't make her basic attack a blast attack. And we got Rappa, of course. Her first and second part of her basic attack are blast attack, so she's a great erudition. With QQ, it's quite a shame. She's more like a boss fighter than an erudition character, since when she got her enhanced attack, if you have won that gambling game with her, then she does like a crazy amount of damage with that enhanced basic attack. So if they just made her natural basic attack a blast attack, she might have been a more erudition character than more like a boss killer. And with Yingyuan, his basic attack also just targets a single enemy, which is a shame, because then our general would have been a little bit more better, you know. And Jade is the only character in the whole game who has natural basic attack, so without any enhancements or weird conditions, that just hits 3 enemies always with her basic attack. And with Himeko, her basic attack also just hits 1 enemy. Herta's basic attack also hits 1 enemy. But in her case, she got this thing where if she basic attacks an enemy who has 50% or less HP, that she does additional damage. Which is quite nice actually, since when an enemy gets below 50% HP, Herta does a follow-up attack. So if she couldn't finish off that enemy, she can just finish it off with that basic attack. But that's more the case with those small enemies. If she's against the elite or boss, then that extra damage from that basic attack will be almost neglectable. And we got Argenti. His basic attack also just hits a single enemy, which is a shame too, since he's just so basic and mediocre. It would have been amazing if his basic attack also hit 3 enemies, so he could get his stacks also a bit faster. Because with the amount of enemies he hits, he gets more energy and he gets stacks towards getting more crit damage or something. So if his basic attack was also a blast attack, it would have made him a bit more better, you know. And a lot of more people would have been summoning for him, I'd say. I would have summoned for him, since he would have been more skill point efficient. If there are just 3 enemies on the field, you can just do your basic attack to just get those stacks then, of course. But if you want to do more damage, of course, you do your skill. But that's a whole another discussion. And we got 2 enemies from the destruction path who do blast attack, which are Blade and Immortalune, which is quite interesting since destruction characters are that middle ground between single target damage and AoE damage. And since Blade and Immortalune's skill don't do anything apart from making it so that their basic attack hits 3 enemies, it's quite interesting to see how bad Arlan and Hook are compared to all other erudition characters. Since Arlan his basic attack and skill hit 1 enemy, and Hook his basic attack and skill hit 1 enemy. But in Hook's case is, if you use her ult, her skill gets enhanced, which makes it a blast attack. With Clara, her skill attacks all enemies, which is quite unique. Firefly is an interesting case since if she's not in her Super Saiyan mode, her skill just attacks 1 enemy. But if she gets in her Super Saiyan mode, it attacks 3 enemies. Jingli is the same case. She attacks 1 enemy with her skill if she's not in her Super Saiyan mode. If she's in her Super Saiyan mode, she attacks 3 enemies. Lingsha always attacks 3 enemies. Physical MC always attacks 3 enemies with her skill. Suiyi and Yunli, the same case. The interesting thing is Fire MC from the Preservation class, since she's the only character from the Preservation class whose basic attack attacks more than 1 enemy. Since Aventurine, Fuswan, Gepard, March 7 all attack 1 enemy with their basic attack. But in Fire MC's case, it is not a natural basic attack that attacks 3 enemies. It is her enhanced one, when she has like 4 of those special stacks she gets. And now on to the next pattern, from which Rappa is the 6th too that does this. As you can see, we got Rappa twice, we got Acheron twice, and we got Suiyi twice too. This one may be a little bit difficult to figure out what they have all in common, what they are doing right now on this screen. And it is more as in, sure, you can see Silverwolf casting her technique, but what does that technique actually do? The same case with Acheron, you can see her casting her technique, but what does that technique do? And we can see Ruanmei casting her skill and then attacking someone, and Fei Xiao is just casting her ult. We got Acheron casting her ult too. We can see Rappa surfing around, which is her technique, and we can see her doing her all 3 enhanced basic attacks. And we got Suiyi doing her ult, and Suiyi doing her follow-up attack. And in Suiyi's case, just one hint, she is not E0 here, she is E2. Maybe that might have to spark the commonality between all of these characters. And when discussing all these patterns, we are assuming that all the 5-star characters are E0. Since I don't care about E1, E2 or E3 5-star characters, since those are so difficult to get. Like after playing since day 1, my highest Eidolon I have is, I think, Clara E2, which is a standard 5-star banner. I don't have any 5-star character higher than E2. And in the case with limited 5-star characters, their Eidolons, it's just a whole another world what they do. That's just so out of scope and unreachable for so many people, even me. So I won't be discussing that. So apart from all of that, what is the commonality between all of these characters? That is that all of these characters ignore toughness regardless of the enemy's their weakness. Which is different from implanting a weakness, just like how Silverwolf does with her skill, Firefly does with her Super Saiyan mode skill, how Boothill does with his technique and ult. This is just a raw dog toughness ignoring, regardless of their weakness type. But in the case with Acheron's ult, it is more her talent that makes it possible that her ult ignores the toughness, regardless of weakness. But even though it is her ult that eventually ignores the weakness type when doing toughness damage. And now on to the third special thing that Rappa does, from which she is also the third character in the whole game that does this. We can see we have 4 erudition characters, from which are Rappa herself of course, Herta, Argenti and Yingyuan. Maybe now you might have already guessed it, like aha, it might be that. But we also got one destruction character, which is Clara, and one abundance character, which is Lingsha. And all of these characters are casting their skill. And by now, you might have already guessed it, all these characters are hitting all enemies with their skills. So their skills are AoE. And if we go to the erudition characters, we can see all of these characters, if their skill doesn't attack all enemies, they do something else. In Arjan's case, his skill attacks all enemies. Herta's case, his skill attacks all enemies. Jator's skill marks an ally and gives extra speed and all that stuff with her. Yinghua's skill attacks all enemies, makes sense. QQ's skill makes it so that she gambles her thing away and gets more damage. So it makes sense that it doesn't attack all enemies since it's not an attack type skill. Rappa's skill attacks all enemies as we just saw. Surfer's skill just attacks 3 enemies, so it's a blast skill. But since she has this talent of hers where for every enemy that has shock on them, and if she does any attack, all those enemies also get an additional damage. Maybe that's why the reason that they didn't make it so that her skill attacks all enemies. And we got Himeko, whose skill just hits 3 enemies. That's it. Sure, maybe the reason why it hits 3 enemies is maybe because of her talent, where she does a follow-up attack when 3 enemies, their weaknesses have been broken. So if they made her skill also AoE, maybe then she might have been too broken or not standard banner character level. But even though it would have been quite nice if her skill attacked all enemies, then she wouldn't be so dependent on that talent and ult of hers. But anyway, onto the last thing that Rappa does, from which she is the first character in the whole game of all 60 playable characters up until now that she does, from which she is the only one which does this. And as you can see on the screen, I'm just showing you the third part of her basic attack, her enhanced basic attack. And the thing that she is doing with the last part of her basic attack is she attacks all enemies with her basic attack. She's the only character in the whole game that does that with her basic attack. But I understand why her basic attack attacks all enemies. Since she is of course an erudition character, and since her ult just gives her another turn, which makes it so that her basic attacks are enhanced, she needs to do something AoE-ish. And there are 21 characters in the whole game that attack all enemies with their ult. And since Rappa doesn't do an attack with her ult, but gets this enhanced basic attack, she needs to do some sort of AoE apart from her AoE skill. So that's why I think they just make it so that her enhanced basic attack attacks all enemies, which makes sense. Otherwise she wouldn't be that much of an erudition character. And like I said to you, there are 21 characters in the whole game that attack all enemies with their ult. And Lingsha is the 21st character to do that, which I made a video on. And Lingsha is also the 5th character twice to do a special thing too, which you can check out in that video. And when summoning for Rappa next week, I think she will be releasing on Wednesday, I will do a pool for every push-up I do. So watch out for that. It's the same thing I did with when summoning for Fei Xiao. I was like literally sore for a whole week. I was suffering a lot when doing the push-ups when summoning for Fei Xiao. It was really agonizing. But I hope I might have become a little bit more fitter, so that when summoning for Rappa, that I will have an easier time. So be ready for that. So I thank you for your time and see you the next time. Bye.